Hey my glam girls, welcome back to my channel. It's Chelsea, where we talk about all things glam and all things girly. I'm a beauty enthusiast and consultant who loves to talk about everything dealing with beauty and makeup, and today we're talking about Mother Pat's Mothership Mega palette. This is her Celestial Nirvana palette. I'm so excited to be sharing with you 3 eye looks today inspired by the layout of this palette. Can't wait to get into all of that with you guys. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I truly do appreciate it. And let's get right into this video. So yes, Celestial Nirvana. As soon as I saw this palette, I was very excited for it because I could not put down Celestial Divinity. This is the palette that came out last year, and I was just like, give it to me, give it to me. And literally, I ranked this as one of the best palettes from last year. And so when I saw Celestial Nirvana, I'm gonna tell you, I had the very same high expectations. So here is the palette. It does not look all nice and pretty because I have been playing with it and all of that. It does retail for $82. It has a really nice size mirror in here. This is going to be available at Sephora on October the 7th. It is available at Pat McGrath's website. And included in this palette, we get 18 new hues of color. So she says that we have Silky Matte, we have Metallics, we have a Satin Frost shade, and then we have Shimmer shades. Let's just get into the eye look. So first, let me tell you how I got the inspiration for the looks, or in terms of the colors. When I opened up this palette, the first thing I saw was 3 color schemes, and I don't know if Mother Pat laid out this palette that way. I'm going to assume that she did, but what I saw was a color story right here. Then I saw another color story right here in the middle, and then this third color story. And I was like, well, those are the 3 eye looks right then and right there. So that's what we're doing. So first, starting off with this color story right here. So in this particular color story, and you guys know by now, if you are not new to my channel, if you are new to my channel, I do forget the order of how I do apply my eyeshadows. So watch the tutorial if you want to see the order, and I will share with you my thoughts. So in this particular color wheel, we have 3 matte shades. We also have a metallic shade and then 2 shimmer shades. So getting into the matte shades, the mattes really are silky. That is the term that she uses to describe her matte shades, and I would have to agree. They're quite silky. They're also very soft, which for Pat McGrath's mattes, they're not always the softest. So I was really happy to feel that they are really nice and soft to the touch. These actually would make great blushes, and you will actually see me use this pink shade right here as a blush in the demonstration. So these are the swatches of the 3 matte shades. So let's put them right here. And with this eye look, I did go in with a white eye base. So I went in with Color Fix, and this is the shade called Lift. I wanted to do a cut crease. Forgive me, I'm not the cut crease queen. I am stepping out of my comfort zone and trying to try new things with eyeshadow. So today the eye look came out pretty okay. I'm sure I will get better at it the more that I do use it. But I will say, these matte shades are really nice, very soft, very blendable. I was like, okay, Mother, you have pretty much nailed down your matte formula. Keep it like this. But they are nice and pigmented, very easy to blend, but also very easy to work with. So although they're nice and pigmented, they're not overly pigmented. So for instance, the intensity that you see here in the palette is not going to be that exact intensity when you put it on your brush, tap off the excess, and then put it on your eye, which is not a bad thing because then you can build up the color intensity to what you like. But if you are new to eyeshadow or just new to color in general, you won't have to worry about using too much right off the bat. So I really do like that quality about these matte eyeshadows. And I would say that is pretty much true for all of the matte eyeshadows in this palette. Then we get into the shimmers. The shimmers are really, really beautiful. I enjoyed using these, and I also used one of these shimmers as my highlight in the look. So I used this shimmer as a highlight. And did I use this? No, I didn't. I should have used this as like a cheek highlight because it really is a beautiful shade. And for me, I could use a shade like this for like either a cheek blusher look. It would be too dark as an actual highlight, but it would be really beautiful as a blush on me, just like to feather it very lightly over the apples of my cheek. If you have a rich complexion, then this shade here would also be a really beautiful shade for blush. And I also think this shade could work really nicely for, I would say maybe like medium to, I would say even to deep complexions. I think this would be a really nice highlighter shade. And once again, the formula is really beautiful, easy to blend with. And so this shimmer formula is very smooth. It doesn't have any sparkles in it. So it's great to use on the face as well as the eyes. And then we get into this metallic shade right here. So this metallic shade does have some texture to it, but it is it's still pretty smooth in terms of how it feels. So here is that metallic shade. And so I did initially apply it onto the eye with my finger, and it feels very soft. I love this like coppery golden hue that this shade has and is consistent of. It's really, really beautiful. And hopefully, as you can see, with me blending it out, it's not as textured as it might look in the pan, even though it is a metallic shade. It's a very smooth metallic shade. So I really enjoy all of the shades in this particular color wheel. I do really like how my eye look came out, and I'm like, I'm gonna perfect the cut crease so like that look could look even better. So this color story in the middle just looks like so much fun. You got these purples and these blues, and I was like, let's go for it. So I went in with a black base. So I went in with Color Fix in the shade Blackout. And I will have all of these products linked in the D box below. And so this color wheel is going to consist of 3 matte shades. We have, I believe this is a Satin Frost shade, and then we have 2 of her shimmer shades. So these shades, I put a black base underneath them because I really wanted to intensify the depth of these shades. Once again, like I mentioned with the matte shades in the first color story, these matte shades are definitely going to be very soft to the touch. The consistency of the matte shades is consistent amongst all of them. So I don't feel like there are some mattes that are like more chalky, you know, patchy or what have you. They all seem to be quite consistent in their intensity. Let's see, let's put them right here. They all were very easy to blend, and just like I did with the other color wheel, I used this shade here as a blush, and it blended really beautifully on the face. So once again, very beautiful formula of the matte shades. Then getting into the 2 shimmer shades right here, I was like, this blue is so pretty and so intense, and putting it over the black, I was like, oh, I wasn't ready for it. These are the 2 shimmer shades, and I didn't have enough room on my arm, so I removed the other shades, but so beautiful and intense. Now, what I forgot to show, it wasn't that I forgot to film it, but I accidentally deleted the footage. I know. I took this shade and I put it right here in the crease of the eye look. So I'm sorry I didn't capture it on camera with me actually applying it, but I took a very light, thin brush. So I took the Rose and Bend. Here we go. I took the Rose and Bend. This is the E26 brush. Oh, look at that. It's a perfect brush to do winged liner, but it's also a really great brush to do any type of detailed work. So I took this shade right here. It's like a periwinkle shade, and I used it to add shimmer right in the crease of the eye look. So I'm sorry I forgot to make sure that footage was included in the video, but I did want to point that out so you could at least look for that detail. But once again, very smooth shimmers, easy to work with. I mean, like I said, the formula in this palette seems quite consistent to me, and I'm really, really happy about that. I would say for Pat McGrath, the only inconsistencies that I've ever really seen in her palettes are with her matte shades. Her shimmers, I mean, we all know, like, they stand out. They really do. But I couldn't always say that about her matte formula. So I'm really happy to see such a beautiful formula of matte shades here. And then we get into, like I said, I believe this is a Satin Frost shade here. This might be my favorite shade in this one, and another one that I'm gonna talk about might be my favorite shades in the palette, simply because of the formula. This formula, now it reminds me, and we will be doing a couple little comparisons, it reminds me of the formula that she put in her Mothership 11 palette that she replaced her Astral shades with in Mothership 11. So we'll take a look at it. I absolutely, first of all, love the shade. It reminds me of the shade in Mothership 5. What is that shade called? You guys are gonna go make me get it. Hold on. I forgot what the shade is called, but this shade right here, it reminds me of this shade from Mothership 5, which is absolutely, hands down, one of my most favorite Mothership shades of all time. I don't know what makes this shade so special to me, but oh. So this is the Blitz Astral formula. So formula-wise, it is going to look different, but color-wise, it reminds me of it. Do you guys see the difference? Is there a difference? So there's no difference. I'm like looking at them up close. Oh, they're not like identical, but it does remind me of that shade. So that's why I had to swatch it. So this is from her new Mothership palette. This is from Mothership 5. But it reminds me of her Blitz Astral shades, but I would say that this formulation is going to just be smoother. It has less texture to it, but you get such like shine from it. I love it, okay? Love, love, love it. Okay, I really enjoyed the way that the eye look came out with this second color story. I think it's intense. It's definitely like kind of out there, at least for me. Out there, not one to like hide behind anything, but that's what I was going for. I really wanted to use these shades and show them in a more bold way, which is another reason why I put the black base down. So for this third color story, I wanted to go in with these shades here and create somewhat more of like a more wearable look with just a little edge to it, but a little bit more of a wearable look. So once again, we have 3 mattes, we have 2 shimmers, and then what I believe is her Satin Frost shade. So I will go ahead and swatch these. Now these shades, I did not put a base down. So what you see on my eye is essentially going to be the shadows in and of themselves. So we'll swatch the mattes first. We'll just kind of keep consistent with how we've been swatching the palette. And this shade in the middle right here that I just swatched, this shade right here is, oh my gosh, this is like the ultimate blender shade for someone around my complexion. So as you can see, this shade is definitely just a smidge deeper than my complexion. Well, when I say a smidge deeper, in terms of like putting it on the eye, it doesn't really show too much on my eye. I mean, you see the coolness of this shade, and it does provide somewhat of a shadow. But when I took that shade and blended out the edge of my eye, when I went to blend in the green shade, it is such like the perfect blender shade for someone who's like around my complexion. I absolutely love that shade for that reason. It's really, really beautiful. And this green shade, once again, loved how it's quite pigmented, but I can also build up the pigmentation. So even with when I applied the green on my eye, I did try to pack it on because I knew I was going to blend it out, and I still wanted you to see the green even after it was blended. But once again, really happy that I can blend the shade and make it less intense, and I'm also happy that I can build up the intensity to my liking. Then we're gonna swatch these 2 shimmers right here. Now, this top shimmer right here, I was quite surprised by. So this one right here that I'm about to swatch, I was thinking this was going to be more of like a golden hue, and it is definitely more of like a cooler toned type of shade. And I was not ready for it. I put it in the inner corner and I was like, wait a second, this is not like gold. This is like it's got a silver hue to it. But you know, I said, hey, let's just throw it into the eye look, because I'm all for mixing golds and silver, warm tones and cool tones together. So it's definitely got a pinky silvery shift to it. And then we do have like more of a traditional, kind of like an old gold type of shade here. And once again, shimmer formula, very blendable, easy to work with, just really, really beautiful. And then like I said, between these two Satin Frost shades are my most favorite shades in the palette. And like I said, it is for the formula. This I also used on my face as my highlight here, and gorgeous, okay? Just gorgeous. So I'm gonna put this right here on the back of my hand, and that's that shade right here. Oh, look at it, it's so pretty. Now, it looks like it might be too deep as a highlighter, but blending it out, you can see that it blends out really nicely. So what I did today, I just used a light amount of it on my brush, and so it doesn't look casty, you know, on the face in terms of a highlight. But it does look really, really beautiful. And for the, I forgot to mention, when I was working with this purple blue based color wheel, I used this shade to feather on the apples of my cheeks, and I used this shade as a highlight. Both of them looked beautiful on the face, and I just went in with a very small amount on a fluffy brush so that it didn't look too intense, or that it didn't look, you know, like just too much. And I did so with the blushes as well. So I went in with this shade as a blush for this color story, and this bright pink shade as a blush on this side. And I used this shade as a highlight for that first look. And once again, going in with a fluffy brush, blending it out, everything came together really, really beautifully. For all three looks, after I was done applying my eye looks and then the products on my face, I did go in with Pat McGrath's Under Eye Blurring Powder in the shade Medium. And I took a fluffy brush, so I took the La Mer, the powder brush, and I just blended it or buffed the powder all into the face just to help everything blend more seamlessly. And then I did set my face with the Danessa Myricks Set It Forever Mist, just to make sure everything was just nice and refreshed. And let me tell you, I am very happy with how all three looks came out. I think this palette is really, really beautiful, and formula-wise, I am here for it. So some things that I want to point out about this palette that are different from the Celestial Divinity palette is that the Celestial Divinity palette, let me hold it up really quickly, it had only 5 mattes in it and 15 shimmers. So this palette also has 18 shades. The size of the pans are a little smaller than the size of the pans in her Nirvana palette, but we only have 5 matte shades, but a lot of different shimmers. The shimmer formulation as well, we didn't have too many. I think we really only had 2 types of shimmers. We had some metallics and then like traditional shimmers. So this palette, I remember saying when it came out, this is like an all year kind of go-to palette because you've got shades in here for winter, spring, summer, and fall. The major downside of this palette though was that we had very kind of neutral and lighter matte shades. So if you wanted to do more of a smoky look and you didn't want to go in with the shimmer, you would have needed to reach outside of this palette, especially if you had a deeper, richer complexion, or if you're just somebody who really wanted to like smoke out a look, especially with like a deep dark chocolate shade, a black shade, navy blue shade, in terms of having that in a matte formula. That's what this palette really lacked. Now, with this Celestial Nirvana palette, we have the opposite. So we have 9 matte shades, and then we have 9 shimmer slash metallic slash satin frost shades collectively. And with this palette, where I feel it kind of steps up the game or fills in the gap that Divinity didn't have, is that we do have these 2 deeper shades here that we can use to smoke out an eye look. And if you have a deeper, richer complexion, then I would say you would probably lean more toward that navy blue shade because it does build up its intensity pretty nicely. Now, if you want it, you know, black or like a really, really deep, dark, rich chocolate shade. I don't know if we're gonna get that from here because this brown shade here is going to lean more neutral, and it's also not as deep as it can be. But we do have this navy shade that can bring some depth. We also have this green shade here, which depending on how you do your eye look, it can also help to ground the shade, smoke out the shade as well. And then with these purple shades here, and this pink shade, and then this kind of like terracotta shade, those are gonna be beautiful pops of color that if you like to use those pops of color in a matte formula, we have it here as well. And this shade right here could also be used to smoke out an eye look. It's not gonna be as deep as maybe the navy and this brown shade here, but it can be used to smoke out a shade. So I think that's where this Nirvana palette, if I could say, kind of takes it a step above this Divinity palette right here, because we have a little bit more diversity of matte shades. And so for me, I feel like the more diverse matte shades that you have, the more diverse looks you can have, because shimmer shades, I mean, they can definitely change up an eye look, but if you want to really change the skeleton of your eye look, then for me, I definitely lean toward my mattes to do that, not so my shimmers, you know. And for me, I also typically don't like to do like a full shimmer eye look. I do like a matte shade to help, like I said, ground the eye look, like give me something to work with, give me a framework to work from. So I really, really enjoy this one. I loved Divinity, but like Nirvana, she's good, okay? She's really, really good. And like I said, I love this Satin Frost formula. Now, I do want to take a look at Mothership 11 because I want to look at the shimmers in that palette and compare it to these shimmers here. So already looking at it, these four shimmers here, I can tell that these are going to be more textured than the Satin Frost shades here in the Nirvana palette. So I'm gonna swatch these again, and then we're just gonna swatch the shades in Mothership 11. Y'all, why do I keep saying Mothership 11? Mothership 10, forgive me. So here we go. We've got the two Satin Frost shades from Nirvana. So I'm going to swatch these 5 shades right here, so we can at least just look at the formula and see if this formula is in Mothership 10 or if this is a new formula for her. So I'm gonna start with these 2 shades because I feel like these 2 shades are probably going to be the closest in formulation, because they almost feel very similar. So from looking at them, they look like they are the same formulation, that Satin Frost formulation. And of course, if you know, definitely leave your feedback in the comment section below. We are all here to learn. But I do believe that these 2 shades from Mothership's 10 palette is going to be the same formula as the Satin Frost. So I believe all 4 of them are Satin Frost shades. And then I am gonna swatch these 3 shades here just to, you know, compare the formula. I don't know if they're gonna be the same, but they might be. I know they're a little different. Yeah, they're a little more textured. So there we go. And yeah, they're, especially these 2 shades right here, they are a little more textured and they're not as opaque as these shades here. But just looking at them, I would definitely say that just from the way they look and feel, I would say that these 2 shades right here are going to be that Satin Frost formula that we find here in Nirvana. And yeah, I think this palette, like I said, I think this one is really beautiful. Comparing it to Divinity, I feel like the shades in Nirvana are going to be richer. They're going to have a little more depth to them in terms of just how they look. And I'm going to try to hold them up side by side so you can see what I'm talking about. Hopefully you can see them, but I feel like the shades in Nirvana are going to just be richer, and a little more intense than the shades that are in Divinity. So I'm really happy about it. I would say that if you have Divinity, you're definitely not gonna be repeating yourself with Nirvana. And you know, once again, you always have to take into consideration, number one, if this palette and this color story is one that you feel you would use. I know for me, I love color and I love different textures, so I most definitely am going to get some use out of it. And I also like that this palette does have an array of shades, so you can get your more wearable looks, or you can go dramatic if you want to as well. So I definitely feel like this is a palette that could be worth your money, especially if you are looking for a palette with pops of colors, different finishes and textures, and a really good quality formula. Like I said, there's not one formula in this palette that I was just kind of like, oh, that's just okay, it's a little mediocre. The way that I thought the shadows would show up on my eyes is the way that they showed up, and I'm really, really happy about that. So I would say this is a win for me. I would definitely recommend this palette if you are interested in it. And like I said, everything that I have on my face and the looks that I wore previously will be linked down below. So yes, let me know your thoughts about this palette. What do you think of it? Are you interested in it? And if you have it, have you been using it? What do you think? And tell me about what you think about the eye looks. Do you think this palette is worth your buy? Leave all that down in the comment section below. And if you've made it to this point in the video and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, I would love for you to consider subscribing and joining the Glam Girl Squad. And guys, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you in my very next video. Bye guys.